Hey guys, good to see you. Tyler Coon with Savvy STR Agents here, and we're streaming on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we might be on Instagram, we're probably not on TikTok because I'm not that cool. But today I'm here with Kate, and Kate is hostwithkate.com, right? And Kate is some sort of an Airbnb wizard. We're going to learn a little bit about that today. Y'all, if you end up with any questions, comments, please throw them in the chat. We want this to be really interactive. So, Kate, tell us a little bit about you.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Tyler, for having me. So I have been hosting on Airbnb for 9 years now. Started with just a private bedroom in my own primary residence, and I fell in love with hosting. I ended up co-hosting 10 listings in San Diego, some really unique spaces like floating homes and yachts, which was really fun. And then
That's cool.
yeah, and then I actually moved up to San Francisco and worked out of Airbnb's global headquarters for a while as a host advisor. And now I'm a full-time ambassador for them ever since 2020. So I help people all over the world with all sorts of different listings on board to the Airbnb platform. It's the coolest
Cool.
job ever.
That is the coolest job ever. That sounds really cool. What do you think is the number one key for Airbnb host success today?
Communication, for sure.
Good communication with the
As
guests.
with anything, right? Like communication is everything. So
Yeah.
just
So is that like with the guests?
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Just being really upfront about anything and everything and making sure that they know they're in good hands along their journey.
Yeah, very cool. What is the best tip for optimization on a listing? I know one big part of your job is going in, helping a brand new host create a listing from scratch. And obviously, as a former Airbnb employee and now an official Airbnb ambassador, you probably have some peek behind the scenes that us little people don't get. So what does that look like? Not only the top one, but the top three.
Yeah. So I would say good photos. You probably already know this, but oh my gosh, you would not believe how many people I connect with that have these incredible listings and they've written out beautiful descriptions and everything, but the photos, you can tell they just like quickly snap them with their cell phones. And I'm like, please just invest in this. Like it will be so worth it. People are such visual creatures and it makes a huge difference. So I would say good professional photos. Um, and let's see, dynamic pricing for sure, going in and making sure that the pricing, you're always tinkering with it, or maybe, connecting it with a platform like Wheelhouse or having smart pricing so that that is really optimized. And then just in general, tinkering with your listing. Like the more that you kind of play with it, uh, in the background, like playing with your settings and switching your photos and switching the words that you're using in your title. That's a big part of the Airbnb search algorithm. They really reward hosts who care, and they can see when you're back there tinkering with those things, and they do help you show higher in search results. Of course, there's many parts of the search algorithm, but that's something that certainly does help.
Yeah. So my listing that I launched like 2 years ago and haven't touched since then, I should probably go like change a few things here
You
and there.
should, like, seriously, experiment with that and see how quick you get a booking after doing that.
So what does your job look like as an Airbnb, an official Airbnb ambassador?
Yeah, so I basically people can connect with me directly through Airbnb. Like if they're on the website and they're starting a listing, a little pop-up will show up that's like, hey, do you have any questions? Connect with an experienced host, connect with Kate, so they can just message me right through there. So I'm spending a good amount of time just responding to all the messages that come through my like Airbnb ambassador dashboard. And then I do a lot of listing look-throughs. So I'm just kind of scanning through listings and sending them feedback on how to optimize it, how to make it the best it can be. My previous life before Airbnb, I was a brand strategist. So that's actually one of my favorite parts about this job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I also run webinars for Airbnb. So like I just got out of an intro to hosting webinar. I do those every other week. It's totally free directly through Airbnb. So it's just tons of good tips and tricks and just kind of walking people through what it's like to onboard your very first listing to Airbnb. What else? And I also help out with their Airbnb Entrepreneurship Academy, which is a really cool program. Airbnb connects with different nonprofits all over the world. And again, we do like webinars and sessions to help people learn about Airbnb and how to be a good host.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So what can people get involved in, I guess, from the Airbnb side? A lot of us, like, Airbnb hosts, there's a lot that we do outside of Airbnb, but I think a lot of people forget that there's so much you can do within the Airbnb community. And it's something I'm certainly guilty of. So what are ways that people can get engaged on the Airbnb community side that could potentially help them as a host?
Oh, yeah. Glad you asked that. So I think one of the biggest things that you can do is join your local host club. Are you a part of your local host club?
Nope.
You should join. I'm sure there's a good one there. I'm actually the community leader for Central Virginia. So I'm the one that gets to host these fun events for our local Airbnb host club. But it's such a great way to just meet fellow real estate nerds and just get together. I have a Taco Tuesday every month, and we just gather at a local taco place and just chat about what's going on with our own Airbnbs. And I feel like it's been really helpful for not only me, but the other hosts that come just to connect with one another and get, maybe like their listing isn't available and somebody reaches out. It's so nice to know fellow hosts and, say, hey, here's a link for my friend's Airbnb. Like, it looks like theirs is open. Different things like that. It's just great to network and have that community for sure.
Yeah. Do you think these like wish list posts that people put, hey, go heart all the listings in the comments, do those help?
That's a good question. I think it is part of the search algorithm. There's lots of parts of it, but I'm pretty sure I read that does help a bit.
What do you think is a hidden part of the search algorithm that people don't pay enough attention to?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Oh, thanks.
Probably what we talked about earlier, just the fact that tinkering with your listing on the back end really helps push it up in search results. Also, just being really flexible in general with like your minimum and maximum night stays and your just the types of folks that you want coming in. Having a cancellation policy where people can choose which policy they want. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, on my listings, they can choose between a moderate cancellation policy or a non-refundable one. I don't know if that specifically helps, but I think people like that option. Same with like instant booking, of course, but just giving the guests more options does help for sure.
That makes sense. Okay, interesting. Do you think so there's two different ways that Airbnb will charge their fees. And the first way is 3% to the host and then 14 to 17% to the guest. It's kind of this ephemeral, they won't tell you, it changes from time to time. Or the host pays 15% and it's flat and it's exactly what it is every single time. I personally opted into that because I was like, if Airbnb's offering this and they're kind of pushing people towards it, there's going to be some sort of a reward for me as a host. And that was the property that I bought last year. It was the first property I ever did it on, and it was my most successful property ever. And even with hosting challenges like my well going dry and some of my guests not having water and having to cancel people and having bad reviews, like I still get good bookings even after all of that stuff. And I think that it's because I went through my listing and I did a bunch of stuff that I thought Airbnb would really like. Like I don't host on Vrbo, for instance. I don't host anywhere other than Airbnb. You won't even find me on direct booking, right? And my places have a better occupancy rate than a lot of my competitors. And so I don't wonder if that potentially has something to do with it. I
Probably.
firmly believe that if you're not importing a calendar into Airbnb that's blocking out dates, they can see that and they will reward you if you're only on Airbnb. I firmly believe that. I don't think anybody from Airbnb would ever say it, but I really do believe it, because why wouldn't they? Why
Right.
wouldn't that be a part of it?
It makes sense to me. Like I don't know that answer for sure either, but I wouldn't be surprised. I know. Well, I think another big thing is like how many reviews you have. And if you're exclusive to Airbnb, like I've always been and you've always been, you're just going to have more reviews on that listing instead of them being like some on Vrbo, some on Airbnb, some on booking.com. It's just going to look better as a
Mhm.
listing.
Yeah.
So that certainly helps keep
Yeah.
it up in search results. And then
Yeah.
as far as like the simplified pricing thing, I don't know. That's a good question. I wouldn't be surprised if that is another thing that helps you
Mhm.
be pushed higher in search results, but I'm not positive. I've experimented with it. Currently I'm not using it, but I did for a while. I haven't seen a huge difference, to be honest. I also, when I was using the simplified pricing, I did
Mhm.
increase the nightly base rate just a little bit to like kind of help make up for that.
Yeah.
So in the end, they've both been about the same price for the guest. I think it might look a little better to the guest, just not seeing that like extra fee when they're about to book. Just
Mhm.
psychologically, it probably looks a little better.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I don't know.
and I think I also believe, because they do charge that somewhere between 14 and 17% to the guest side. So if it's 3% to me and 14 and 17% to the guests, overall that's more than 15% total.
Yeah.
Almost always. And so Airbnb is actually taking a lower fee, which overall means the guest sees a lower price overall. It's a small difference, but I think it makes a difference. I don't know. That's kind of been my thought on it. I know there's a lot of people out there that kind of challenge that, but I'm all in on the simplified pricing. I'm all in on only using Airbnb. I don't know that a lot of people know that about me. I don't know that I've mentioned that in a long time, because there's a lot of people that believe they need to be on a million different platforms and it helps. And I used to be that way too. I mean, I ran a property management company that was that way. But when I launched mine, like, I can't tell the amount of bookings that we got. I booked over $100,000 in the first 2 weeks of being
Wow.
online. And it's because I believe it's because I went simplified pricing. I didn't have my calendar connected to anywhere else. Nothing could block it. I had no direct bookings, no VRBO, nothing. And I really believe that Airbnb promoted the heck out of me because I was doing everything that it wanted me to do.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I didn't know that about you either. I kind of assumed that you had them on a lot of platforms. So that's cool that you're exclusive to Airbnb like
Yeah,
that.
I think a lot of people would, and I think for me, I'm all about keeping things simple. There's so many people that they are putting so much time and effort into like one or two rentals, and I would rather put my time into my job, which then creates income, which then I can go buy more short-term rentals or renovate them or add more amenities or take
Sure.
better photos. So I don't know. That's how I am about it. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's my own little way to go about it, I guess.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, it's been a wonderful platform for me. I've never even, I'm going to be honest, I haven't even like experimented with any other platforms. I will say though, because I do get a lot of return guests, I do now take on a lot of like direct bookings.
Mhm.
It's something that like I want to focus more on and maybe create a website eventually, but people just I have like a little sign in my Airbnbs that says like, did you enjoy your stay? Want to come again? Feel free to book direct. And I have like an email, like a special
Yeah.
email that they can just email me. And it is a little bit of manual work, but they're paying less. I'm making more doing that. Love Airbnb. Nothing against Airbnb. That's how
You're
I'll
gonna
get
get in
people in.
trouble.
But if they're returning, it's kind of nice to
Yeah.
just do it direct.
I've seen a lot of people lately complain that they're not getting anything from Vrbo. It totally makes sense to me because
Hmm.
Airbnb really is truly dominating the industry and they just continue to take more. And I believe almost all of the market share. So, like, I'm a big fan. I want all my stuff on Airbnb because I want the most reviews as I possibly can get. So, like, when I
Yeah.
take them and do direct bookings, they're from Vrbo or booking.com or whatever, it's less reviews on Airbnb, which is the majority of folks income for their short-term rentals. And so what's happening, I think, like in my market, for instance, is there's a bunch of people that are on Airbnb only, and we're the ones getting more and more reviews faster and faster. And we're going to rise the ranks of that Airbnb algorithm, which is that's the premium space that you want, is kind of like at the top of the algorithm, right? So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Airbnb is going to release sponsored listings eventually, like pay-per-click advertising where you have to pay for your listing to come up at the top?
Oh gosh, I know there's been like definitely talk about that throughout the years. Honestly, personally, that would make me kind of sad. Like, I think a big reason why I love Airbnb so much is because you don't have to be a super rich person to do well. Like, when I first started, I had nothing. Like, I had just purchased my first house. I had like nothing in my bank account, and I feel like like I've been so successful over the years because I'm a good host. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I truly care about hospitality, and
Yeah.
I put so much love into creating these unique experiences for my guests. And like, that's, I like to think, and I do believe, why I have done so well. So it would make me kind of sad if somebody was able to just like pay to be higher in the search results. I hope that
Yeah. Yeah,
they don't do that.
exactly. Candace had a question. How do you get to Superhost, and do you have any tips to share on that?
Yeah, great question, Candace. So the first hurdle is just completing at least 10 trips, like 10 reservations. Or if you're doing longer term stays, like maybe you're doing midterm rentals, it's 3 reservations that total at least 100 nights. You want to have a really fast response rate, 90% response rate, a very low cancellation rate. You can only have 1 cancellation for every 100 bookings. So, like, essentially no cancellations. And then just maintaining a 4.8 or higher average rating. And that will get you to Superhost. And
Yeah.
it's every quarter they give it out, and they look at the past 12 months.
And I think a lot of people think that, well, everybody gets this, but I think it really does a good job of sorting out what are the good properties and what are the bad properties. And sure, hundreds of thousands of people are getting it, but I still think there's a really good case for Superhost, because at the end of the day, it's kind of weeding people out that maybe have given up, or they aren't doing as well as they did in the beginning, right? And their rating kind of falls down because of that, and they end up losing it,
Yeah.
or something's happening with their property. And so it is something to achieve, I think, and it's a good thing to keep, around. We've seen where, being a super host will boost your property more to the top than not.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Superhosts definitely do make more money. That has been proven. Also, which totally makes sense. Just in general, if you're, providing that great experience, like, you're gonna get more bookings, you're gonna see more money coming in. And yeah, it's nice to have that little Superhost badge. You feel really special. I also like the still somewhat new guest favorites badge.
Mhm.
Um, Especially because personally, I work with a lot of hosts who are home sharers, right? So they're not these big time investors. They have like maybe a basement apartment, or maybe they rent out their whole house while they travel, or maybe they do have like a second home that they're renting out. But I've noticed that a lot of those guest favorite badges are going on those like self managing smaller hosts.
Mhm.
And it kind of makes sense to me because like they, only have 1 or 2 units to really focus their energy on, and they're making it just amazing and very personalized and great. And I like that it's really showing, like, highlighting
Yeah.
those listings that really deserve to be highlighted.
Yeah. Do you think property management companies for short-term rentals are kind of fading away?
No, not at all. No, those will
You think
always
it's
be
continuing
needed.
to grow?
Yeah, and I have lots of friends who that are full-time property managers. That's what they do. That will always be needed. I think my like niche personally though, and what I do is helping those like smaller mom and pop hosts who only plan to have like 1 or 2 units and are more so home sharing, which usually if you're doing that, you don't really need a full-on property manager.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think for me, I'm looking at like most people are going to kind of fall out of like the Vicasas and they're going to end up more with like boutique property management.
Yes.
Maybe it's one or two people or it's a couple that this is what they do for their full time living. And we've seen, I mean, Vicasa lost 9% of their homes in just a year, but the number of Airbnb listings continues to go up. So I think you can see that happening right from the numbers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You would be maybe not surprised at the amount of people who connect with me through Airbnb that were with a major property management company and are like, I want to try to do this on my own. So many people. And I'm like, let's do it. Like, you got this. I think because Airbnb has gotten so big over the past few years, there's been so many other companies that have come out of it. And I really feel for brand new hosts these days because I feel like they're bombarded with like, you have to get this, you have to have a PMS, and you have to have a separate pricing software and all these different things. And it's like very overwhelming for
Hmm.
them. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you can really do pretty much everything directly through Airbnb and do a great job and get super hosts. The only thing is turnovers, which Turno is the jam for that. But that's the only thing that you can't currently do on Airbnb. But I agree with you about like, I do think that boutique, smaller, like local property management companies will win out in the end because
Yeah.
they're there. Like, they're the boots on the ground. They understand the area. They have the time to go over and really understand those houses and just create a better experience for those guests.
Yeah, that makes sense. What areas of the country do you see are potentially ripe for new Airbnbs to go into?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, so I always look at the radius of of where areas are in relation to like many like bigger towns and cities.
Hmm.
Um, so if you're within like 2 hours of, you know, three or more major cities, that's probably a good place to be investing. Or like if you're close to a national park, I think that's one of the biggest things that I tell people if you're looking for like a good area to invest in. National parks are always going to be great. Like anywhere close to there.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't know. I always tell people also like invest where you love. You know, where do you like to go on
totally.
vacation? Because you're going to do a better job selling it if you're going there and you enjoy that space.
Yeah, I also think that you're going to have more confidence in your property. And so you're not going to be as afraid to invest in it. If you love the area, if you love the house, if you're really excited about it, you're going to invest in that property. And nowadays, that's a really important fact. Designing and adding all the right amenities, it's like number one. And there's
Oh my
lots
God.
of room for these smaller hosts, but a lot of people are looking for bigger houses to travel with big groups to. It's almost like a new class of travel that's not really existed before where there were hotel rooms and then maybe there were some vacation rental cabins that you could get, but by far and large people did not travel in very large groups before because it was difficult. There
Yeah.
wasn't big huge spaces available for them that were affordable and readily able to be booked or easy to be booked. And so I think bigger families are traveling. I think bigger friend groups, this whole new like traveling with your friends thing, I
Yeah.
don't believe really has existed in the past. So, investing in those design and amenities and making a house itself a destination is important. And to your point, loving where you're investing and what you're investing in is really important. It's
Yeah,
digital.
absolutely. Yeah, and the design is extremely important too. That's like another thing that I feel like I'm always talking about with, folks will show me their listing and be like, my bookings are low and what can I do? And it's like, well, I'm also like a designer, so it's very obvious to me, but I look at it, I'm like, girl, like put some love into the design, like do some feature walls, have like some new amenities in there, like especially because I again work with a lot of home sharing hosts and a lot of them are in like larger cities and maybe they have a condo and it's like not that unique from the
Mhm.
outside. So what you can do though is like really focus in on the design and the amenities within your own unit, and that can help you stand out a lot more.
Yeah. I think unique design and amenities is the number one thing nowadays. It totally is the number one thing.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a couple more minutes. What are some secrets? What do we need to know? What's the goss? Spill the
Ooh.
Airbnb tea.
Some secrets. I mean, I think just so one thing that I think helps a lot, and this is again me coming from my marketing background, but like really focusing in on and knowing your guest avatar.
Mhm.
So, and basically for those of you who don't have a marketing background or, don't know, that's basically like who you want to be attracting to your listing. Like who is the guest that you want? And like write this down. This is homework for anyone watching. Like how old are they? What are they coming into town for? What do they care about? What are they going to be doing while they're in town? And really, really be specific about it and create a listing that appeals to them and call it out. Like, for example, one of my guest houses, our guest avatar is young, spontaneous road tripping couples with a dog. I even have a name for it, for one of the avatars. And it's so funny. Like so many people with that exact name have booked my space, but like 85%, I would say or maybe even more of the people who book that space are exactly that. Young, spontaneous road trippers. They book like the night before, they're road tripping up the East Coast. They have a dog or two. And I really lean into it. Like the place is called the Bowhive off 95. Like we're right off the interstate. It's super easy to get to. Pets welcome. So we have like all these pet amenities in there and the dog treats and the dog bed and little welcome sign that has the dog's name on it. I mean, like we really go all out, but people love it. Like look at the reviews on that listing and like they just gush over it. It's because it's built for them. So I think just like really giving that a lot of thought and don't be afraid to niche yourself a little bit. Like with that specific category of guests, it'll be fine. There's tons of people looking, and like I love seeing all these bachelorette pads popping up where they're so specifically for bachelorette parties.
Yep.
I stayed at one in the Poconos last year for my sisters. I booked it and it was like exactly what we needed.
Yeah. And it's the availability of it too. There's enough people in the US. There's a big enough user base at Airbnb now that you can niche down. And just like anything, niches are riches. I mean, that is just what it is. And so I think you're totally right about that. And it's not something we think about enough. I think, it's something that I could think about more in our Airbnbs. Like, what is our guest avatar and what do they want? Well, thank you for coming and hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. This went by really fast. So,
oh my gosh, yeah, it's like already that's crazy. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, if y'all want to hit up Kate at all, it's tell people how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, so my website's hostwithkate.com. And feel free to reach out to me directly at hello@hostwithkate.com. That's my email.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate. Well, thanks, guys. Good to see you. Appreciate y'all, and we'll see you soon.
All right, thanks. Bye.